Chapter 26. Night Sweats. It was 3:10 a.m. The hair at the nape of Agent George Parker's neck was soaked. A band of sweat had bathed the bottom of his pillow. His head twisted from side to side. He rolled from one hip to the other every few seconds. He had kicked the blanket and damp sheets to the end of the bed. His eyes crept into thin slits. Sweat seeped into his eyes, stinging him awake. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, sat, and leaned forward, exhausted. Suddenly, a cold shock ran up his spine and cramped his neck. His teeth chattered. Shivering, he walked to the closet and yanked his sweatpants and shirt from the hook. He put sweats on. He still shivered. He stripped the sheets from the bed, flipped the pillow over, and put more blankets on. It didn't help. He turned the heat up to 85. He still felt like his core was a block of ice. He put on his winter coat, his socks, and his hiking boots. He wrapped his head in a towel. It was no use. He couldn't get warm. He huddled against the headboard. He wanted to run a hot bath and sink into it, but to strip naked meant to be colder. He couldn't bring himself to do it. Suddenly, he felt blazing hot. What the fuck is going on? He sweated profusely and immediately. By the time he stripped down to his sweats, they were soaked. His hair was dripping. Sweat was stinging his eyes again and more. He hurried to the bathroom, turned the shower on, and stood under the cold water. He was still burning up. Cramps bent him over. His bladder emptied. His bowels emptied. He was certain that he would be dead in minutes. And then the world went black. The first thing of which Parker was aware was a distant warble. For a few seconds, it didn't register. What was it? Where was he? As his mind began to focus, he recognized the sound. It was his phone. He looked around. He was on the shower floor. His neck hurt. The back of his head hurt. He reached for the pane. Damp. He slid his hand around in front of him. Blood. He crawled out of the shower, pulled himself up at the sink, staggered to the bedroom, and answered the phone. Where the hell are you? The boss wants to fry your gizzard in lard, FBI agent Frank Turner warned. Parker's mind was encased in a thick haze. What? I said that the boss wants to fry your gizzard in lard. As the haze dissipated, Parker recognized the voice. I don't have a gizzard. Birds have gizzards, Parker slurred. Well, he's going to fry something, and you'd better hope it's not your mountain oysters. I'll be there as quick as I can. Are you drunk? No. I had a little accident. What happened? I slipped in the shower and knocked myself out. What? Are you 90 years old? Right now, I feel like I'm 100. My damn head's bleeding. You'd better go to emergency. I'll let the boss know what happened. Nah. I'll be fine. I don't think it needs stitches. See you in a while. Parker hung up before the argument could continue. He showered and washed the blood out of his hair. Most of the worst bleeding had stopped by the time he finished dressing. He knew he was going to get it from the troops when he walked through the door at the Baltimore FBI office. And he did. Parker, are you supposed to be out without your walker? Agent Brian needled. Repeat after me, Parker. I've fallen and I can't get up, Agent Anthony added. Guys, give him a break. Here. Agent Turner handed Parker a small slip of paper. I've written it down in large letters just in case your site is failing too. The URL is www.lifealertasoneword.com. You guys are a riot, and I mean I wish you were in the middle of one right now, Parker replied. Parker, don't look now, but your collar's turning red, Turner informed. Right, Parker replied with a smirk. No. Really? You're still bleeding. Parker put his hand on the back of his head. He could feel the cut in his scalp. I guess I was wrong. I do need stitches. Several more agents gathered around Parker to check the wound. What's going on? If I'm not mistaken, this is the FBI and there are criminals out there, and it's our job to catch them, unless you're too busy. The crowd parted and his boss, Strangway, walked over to Parker. Damn. Haven't you figured how gravity works yet? It's a pretty simple concept. Turn around. Let me see it. Are you hiding a golf ball in there? Someone get the kit. We'll fix this agent up in a jiffy. I don't know, sir. It looks like it needs some stitches. That's pretty deep. Strangway responded. Cut away some hair, put a couple of butterfly sutures on it, and he'll be good to go. Parker rooted a finger into the wounds. Shit. That's deep. Strangway pulled Parker's hand down. Suck it up. You've got work to do. See me as soon as you stop bleeding on my carpet. Thanks, boss. I appreciate the sympathy. Maybe we should take your gun until you learn how to stay upright. His sometimes partner, Angela Carter, performed the scissors task. She took too much hair and enjoyed every snip. Turner insisted on pulling the skin together and applying the butterfly sutures to the wound. Her comment at the end was, "If this doesn't hold, just use his stapler." With several paper towels pressed on his head, Parker went to his desk to pull out a fresh shirt. As he sat, the computer screen flashed an email notification that the sender had flagged as urgent. Parker looked over the top of his computer screen to check Strangway's office. He was in a meeting with two people whom Parker had never seen. Strangway had his serious expression in full effect. That meant that the meeting would take several minutes. Parker had time to check the email. Parker expected to find a long message. Instead, there was a link to the Seattle Times website. He clicked it, and a picture of a parking lot surrounded by crime scene tape popped up along with an article titled, "Man and Woman Found Murdered Behind Gay Nightclub." The article went on to say that the bodies were discovered in the early morning hours. As he read the article, he knew why it had been sent to him. Spooky was back. Detective Lindy Martin was mentioned prominently in the article, and of course, her failure to solve the first spooky murder was brought up. The email had been sent from an email service that allowed the sender to be anonymous. Parker sat pondering who might have sent it. He wondered if the sender expected him to do something all the way from Baltimore. He felt relieved that he wasn't in the Seattle FBI office or somewhere close to it. Going back to that hostile environment, even though the hostility was the result of only one person, was, to say the least, unappealing. He had come to enjoy the absence of confrontations, animosity, and searing hateful stares. Life had become fulfilling without the personal battles and their accompanying angst. He was also no longer known as Detective Lotus Blossom. Now, he was Agent Lotus Blossom. Still, he didn't mind providing humorous relief for the traditional religionists. He had become known in the office for his calm disposition, especially under stress, and for his crime-site short mind-clearing meditation sessions before he started to examine the scene. Along with the email came discomfort. Immediately after reading the article, he looked at the Buddha pen holder that was given to him as a birthday joke by Agent Susan Simpson and remarked, "Well, Siddhartha, there goes 6 years of calm down the shithole." With his hand holding the door, Strangway stuck his head out of his office and barked, "Parker, I need to see you in here." 10 seconds. Parker looked around his monitor. The two men, who had been in Strangway's office, were walking toward the elevator. "On my way," Parker shot back. As Parker entered the office, Strangway said, "Get your bags packed. You're heading to Seattle." "You're joking." "No. You see those two men, right?" "Well, it turns out," Parker interrupted, "that a man and a woman were found dead behind a gay nightclub, and their sex junk had been switched." "How the hell did you know?" "I got an urgent email with a link to a Seattle Times article about it." "Who was it from?" "I have no idea. It was anonymous. However, it might be better for the investigation if you sent someone else. I think they would meet with less resistance." Besides, why is the FBI getting involved with a local crime? The two men who just left were from the Justice Department. The crime has been classified as a hate crime, so we're in it. But why me? Why not the local FBI office? First of all, there seems to be some tension between the Seattle police and our local office from recent issues. Second, they specifically asked for you. Actually, that was first, but I assume it's because of the tension. Third, you already have connections there, and you have some experience with previous, similar murders, so you can hit the ground running. But I guess that could also be because they know you? He paused, stared at Parker momentarily, and barked. Hell, because I said so. Now get your ass out of here and get packed. And you're sure the Seattle office is okay with that? They seemed okay with it, but I really think they'd just rather avoid any possible confrontation at this time. And you're absolutely sure? I'm not absolutely sure about anything. Are you trying to avoid going? No, I'm fine. I want you and Agent Simpson on the next available flight. Simpson's going? I thought she was still on vacation. She was. Came back yesterday. She's one of the few agents who actually finds working with you interesting. She even said exciting once. Besides, I want a woman on the investigation too. You could use a woman's perspective. Hell, we all could. You have a problem with me going? Agent Simpson said as she walked into the office. Parker looked over his shoulder. No. Of course not. Unlike some people around here, at least you're not offended by my colorful, inventive language and imagery. That's an interesting way to put it, but I grew up on army bases with a master sergeant father and 3 gross brothers. I've heard far worse from them than I ever have from you. See, Parker. She is perfect for you. Anyway, you'll be working with Detective Lindy Martin, who is in charge of the Seattle investigation. WH. What? Who? Is that a problem? No. No problem. It doesn't seem like it's no problem. Would you like me to put Simpson in charge? If you can't handle her, Parker, I'll take charge and tell you what to do, Simpson said. No. I'll do it. I'll just keep my private parts covered. So I take it you have some history with her? Strangway said. Yes. You might say that we don't get along. In fact, you might say that she would like to castrate me or hang me by my nutsack from the flagpole in front of the station. But I can handle it. He paused. Did she ask for me? No. A Captain Johnson did. Did you expect her to? Simpson asked. No. I was hoping she didn't. Simpson asked. Was it that bad? You have no idea. If things get touchy, just call on Simpson. Now get out of here, coordinate your departure and get to Seattle. What about my head? Take it with you. Funny. I mean the cut. Have Simpson take a needle and thread to it or have it tended to in Seattle when you get the time. Now get going. As they left, Simpson smiled at Parker and whispered, Don't worry, I'll protect you, big boy. Parker chuckled. Chapter 27. The Visitation. Parker and Simpson arrived in Seattle at 10:20 p.m. that night. They rented a Ford Escort and drove the short distance to the Marriott Hotel that was closest to the airport. They checked in at a little past 11 p.m. and headed to their separate but attached rooms on the 4th floor. After telling Agent Simpson that he would call her in the morning and meet her for breakfast in the hotel restaurant, Parker went to his room and sat on the edge of the bed for a few minutes. He felt the lump on his head and decided to head to the bar. Over a pint of lager in the bar, Parker sat alone rehearsing what he would say to Lindy. First of all, remember to call her Detective Martin. He proposed 5 different scenarios to himself, and found them all to be lacking. The more he thought about it, the more he dreaded seeing her again. In the 6 years that he had been gone, he had never contacted her, but he had thought about her occasionally. He missed her until he thought about what she was like during those last 2 months. Then he shivered at the thought of her. He had gotten lucky and had escaped, but now, he would have to face the wrath of a woman whose razor-sharp bite made her bark feel like a kiss. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling for 30 minutes before he was able to fall asleep. It was the harsh frown and the fierceness of the Thunderbird's eyes staring down from the top of the totem pole that marked the turning point of Parker's dream. A name streaked through his mind: Koluz. A swirling white cloud within a dark mass hovered over the totem pole. A bolt of bright blue lightning roared from the cloud and struck the bird at the top of the pole. The rigid, outstretched wooden wings vibrated. They moved up and down several inches and with a lunge, reached up to the cloud as if begging for more power. Thunderbolts exploded inside the cloud. Strike after strike pierced Koluz. Its wings grew, its head lifted, and the sharply curved beak opened. It engulfed the cloud, and the totem pole erupted into a spray of splinters. Koluz's long, broad wings flapped rhythmically as it hovered above Parker. With each flap, small sparks lit the wings. It lurched up and then streaked down at Parker. With talons outstretched, Koluz grasped his shoulders. It arched its body over him, stretched its neck out, and looked down. Parker's gaze was drawn upward. Their eyes fixed on each other's. Koluz's wings reached up and spread wide. On the underside of the wings were 2 large pearl-like eyes. With a shrill screech, the wings descended around Parker's body, encased him in blinding white light, and drove its talons deep into his shoulders. He could feel his skin split and his muscles tear until the talons had wrapped around each clavicle. The pain surged through his body. He opened his mouth to scream, but he had no voice. He was held in the white light and excruciating pain. Koluz's wings opened. They reached high and pulled down hard. Near each ear, Parker heard a tearing sound followed by a screech of pain from Koluz. Koluz's wings flapped again. Again, Parker heard the tearing and the painful screech. 3 more times Koluz's wings swept down with 3 cries of pain. As the wind from the wings rushed over Parker, Koluz disappeared as a flood of white condensed into a bright beam of light. Appearing in the beam, a small, thin old man stood wrapped in a rigid wide cape with the pattern of black wings overlapping on the front of the cape. He moved forward and stood in front of Parker. The old man's eyes lit blue, and as he opened the cape, Parker froze. In a deep voice, the old man announced, "I am your shaman, your guide. You have been chosen. Your time will come soon." The shaman moved around to Parker's back. Parker tried to turn his head to follow him, but it wouldn't move. He felt pressure on his right shoulder, and then a painful shock filled his shoulder blade. He tried to pull away from the pain, but he was unable. He felt his skin being torn open, and the muscles being separated as the shaman rooted deeper. Parker could feel the shaman push against something solid and large. A sharp point drove deeper into Parker's shoulder. As the shaman pulled his fingers out, the muscles tore more, the skin separated more, and the pain diminished. Parker felt pressure on his left shoulder blade, and the shaman repeated the searing ceremony. As the shaman extracted his fingers, the pain blazed through Parker's body. Parker's eyes flashed wide open. He bolted upright, his mind in a fog. His heart was pounding, his breathing deep and rapid. His shoulders ached and stung as if ablaze. He rubbed his right shoulder. It was wet. He turned on the light next to the bed. He looked at his hand. Blood. He rushed to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. There were 3 puncture wounds on each shoulder. On the back of each shoulder, there was a wider 3-inch-long hole. When he touched each, pain shot up the back of his neck and down his shoulders. He stared at himself. He must still be sleeping. He would awaken soon. He walked back to the bed and collapsed. Defying the pain, he closed his eyes. He saw Koluz flying away, silhouetted against the moon. As Koluz faded into the distance, he took the pain with him. Parker drifted away. A distant sound came closer and closer. It blared. He woke. He was shaking. He could feel the sweat clinging to his skin. He rose slowly and with fearful uncertainty walked haltingly into the bathroom. He looked into the mirror. The punctures were gone. It had been a dream. Hell, it had to have been a dream. But damn, it felt real. Relieved, he walked back to the bed. He pushed the pillow up. The fear and confusion returned. A shoulder's length apart were two irregular 2-inch circles of blood on the bottom sheets. He looked at the cover sheet. There were 6 irregular 2-inch circles of blood. He felt his shoulders. There were no marks, no blood. His head began to hurt. Within a few seconds, it was pounding. A dark veil encompassed him. When he opened his eyes, Parker was on the floor staring at the ceiling in the same kind of dull fog that he had experienced before after he had collapsed in the shower. Once again, he wondered how he ended up on the floor. This is becoming a bad habit. Had he fallen out of bed? Had he had 2 nightmares? He crawled to the bed and used it to help him up. As his head rose over the side of the bed, he was greeted with the bloodstains on the sheets. They had darkened and spread. Was this a 3rd nightmare? No. This felt real. But this still made no sense. He went to the bathroom. The puncture marks were still gone. He stood staring at himself in the mirror. He knew that he should be terrified, but the mystery of what was happening to him seemed to be distracting him from the worst of the storm of fear, which was lying just under the surface. He was quickly becoming as puzzled as he was frightened. He could vividly recall the dreams, if they were dreams. When he thought about them, he could feel the talons digging into his shoulders. The pain from the punctures replayed. He flinched. They felt so real, but they were gone. Were they ever there? Had he somehow done it to himself? If he had, why? And who or what the hell was Koluz? He checked the time. It was not quite 2 a.m. He could ignore it no longer. He dressed, checked his phone for the directions to the nearest hospital, and drove to it. It was a slow night at the ER. He presented his insurance information, and when he showed his badge and credentials, and the lump and cut on his head, he was shuttled into a room immediately. The doctor said that while the bleeding from the cut had stopped, it would need to be closed. The doctor performed the typical neurological test for concussion. Parker followed a pen just moving his eyes. A pen flashlight was shined in his eyes. He looked at a wall and read a sign. He stood on one foot and then the other. He touched the doctor's finger and then his own nose. He grabbed the doctor's 2 fingers and squeezed them. The doctor ran a tiny spiked wheel down each sole and across each palm. Parker sat on a table, and the doctor hit his knee to test Parker's reflexes. Then he struck his elbow. The doctor snapped his fingers near Parker's ears. Everything was fine. Parker wasn't about to tell the doctor about the visions or nightmares or whatever the hell they were, but he did tell him about having prolonged headaches even though they weren't prolonged. He figured that was the best way to get an MRI. It worked. Blood tests were performed. The results rushed through the lab. By 4 a.m., he was in the tube enduring the sound of hammering. Just after 6:30 a.m., the doctor came in and informed him that there were no signs of any irregularity in the scans. Parker thanked the doctor and left the ER with mixed feelings. While he didn't have a tumor, and he hadn't had a stroke, he knew that it didn't mean that he hadn't gone insane. On the other hand, he hadn't done anything bizarre. He hadn't run naked through the hotel or howled at the moon or wrapped himself in toilet paper to protect himself from chiggers. He didn't feel insane, but he figured that most people who don't feel insane until someone convinces them that they are, which is not easy to do with crazy people. Still, it was good news, kind of. When he got back to his hotel room, he shaved and showered and was ready in time to meet Agent Simpson for breakfast. He pulled his wits together and focused on what he knew to be real. He couldn't dare tell her or anyone what he thought he had experienced, if he had experienced it. Breakfast with Susan was awkward. He wasn't talkative, which he normally was, especially in the morning. She wanted to know what was bothering him. He said that he just felt a little bit off. He blamed it on the bump on his head, which had been compounded by jet lag, something from which he had never suffered. The prolonged look that followed told him that she thought he was hiding more than jet lag and a bump. He only ate 3 bites and spent the rest of breakfast merely moving his scrambled eggs and sausage around the plate. He assiduously avoided prolonged eye contact as it made him feel as if she were reading his mind. He knew it was an absurd notion, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his mind was not his alone. They both left much of the breakfast untouched and headed through the lobby. Parker held the door for Susan, done more for stability than chivalry. As he turned to follow her to the car, across the street he saw a man in a stiff, wide, white cape, the traditional type that the Cowlitz and other tribes in the area wore. On the left side of the cape was a large black wing. On the right side was another wing. With the cape closed, one wing overlapped the other, engulfing the Cowlitz. The man nodded slowly. A bus passed in front of him. Parker locked on to the spot. After the bus passed, the man was gone. Parker looked up and down the street, but the Cowlitz was nowhere in sight. When he turned, Susan was impatiently standing next to the car. He looked several times for the man as he walked toward her. "What's wrong with you this morning? You were not your gabby self at breakfast, and now you're standing around like you lost a puppy. I thought I saw nothing." "You thought you saw nothing? Tell me precisely how you see nothing." "What?" He had drifted away, distracted by his own thoughts. "I asked how it was possible to see nothing if there's nothing there. Don't get metaphysical on me. I don't think I can handle it this morning." "Seems like you can't handle much of anything this morning. Now get into the car and let's check in with your playmates at the Seattle police," she said playfully. As Susan drove, Parker kept checking for the caped man. He couldn't get the image of the cloaked man out of his mind. It wasn't a foreign vision to him. Before joining the FBI, he had lived in the Seattle area since his birth and had seen the local Native Americans wearing the sleeveless cloaks but only as ceremonial attire. But he had certainly seen the man. He felt the bump on his head, at least he thought he had. It had stopped bleeding. Maybe it was the cause of the blood on the sheets. Maybe he had moved around during his nightmare and, coincidentally, the stains had been made in that pattern. That precise pattern. "That's stupid," he mumbled to himself. "What's stupid?" The comment was only intended for him, and it was going to remain so. "Nothing." "Parker, is that going to be your only answer this morning? Pull yourself together. We're almost there." "Where?" "Jesus, Parker. The Seattle police station. Do you even know that we're in the state of Washington? Hell, do you even know what planet we're on?" "Sorry. I just have something on my mind." "Would that something be a woman named Detective Lindy Martin?" "Does everyone know about her and me?" "Except for a few people, that would be a resounding yes. After all, we are the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The key word being investigation." "Great. Just don't let on to her that you know anything about her and me. She'll think I've been talking about her." "Well, you have been. At least you did at the Christmas party." "No, I didn't." "You'd better stay away from the eggnog next time. You tend to reminisce after number 4, but don't worry. Your secrets are safe with me." "Well, me and a dozen or so other people in the FBI." "Great. At least you know everything there is to know about me now." With a slight tilt of her head, she said, "Do I? Do I really?" She smiled. No, she didn't. There were far more bizarre recent secrets about which he would tell no one, especially the strange nightmares, if they were nightmares.